Good evening. My name is Solomon Patray. Today I will be presenting on Security Framework. The objectives of this presentation list objectives that you, the audience, will learn during this presentation. And these objectives include current cybersecurity environment, the current risk management practices, development threats, legal and regulatory requirements, security best practices and framework as a reference to the development of a cyber program, diagram related to the common flow of information, critical cybersecurity needs to ensure compliance, such as the NIST, PCI, PSS, and list and describe the element of SAM, the Software Assurance Maturity Model. The current cybersecurity environment can be improved by implementing a security framework that will identify and close the gaps in the organization's current and future security posture. The security framework will address the following areas: development process. The security framework should be able to detect which development processes are more at risk of attack and implement countermeasures to reduce those risks. A paradigm or model, it should take into account standard security concepts like least privilege and least functionality to lessen the attack surface of the organization systems. Information, the security framework should have controls to guard against unauthorized access to and exposure to sensitive information such as customer data. Configuration management, the security framework should implement controls to guarantee that systems are correctly configured and that the configuration has not been changed without authorization. And then systems. The security framework should identify the organization's most crucial system and measures should be put in place to safeguard them against attack. The NIST risk management framework should be aligned with the appropriate regulation, like PCI, DSS, HIPAA, SOX, and GLBA. Legal and regulatory requirements should be reviewed and complied with. Business mission objectives should be met while still maintaining a secure environment. Organizational constraints should be taken into account while implementing the security framework. Threat intelligence can help an organization identify new threats and help develop risk management to keep the network system safe. A more detailed risk assessment plan should be carried out and evaluate each threat against the likelihood of actual impact of the risk. Upon identifying the threat, vulnerability, and risk for a successful attack, an organization should determine countermeasures plans to be set up to decrease or eliminate the vulnerability. The use of security best practices and framework to develop a cybersecurity program. A cybersecurity framework includes the NIST, the CIS, that's Center of Internet Controls, and the ISO 2700 series. When developing a cybersecurity program, it is important to begin by identifying the organization's assets and determine what must be done to safeguard these assets. Only after this step should the program be developed. The subsequent phase is the creation of the security control and procedure to protect the assets. After the security control has been developed, they will need to be evaluated and tested to ensure that they are effective. They also have to be validated through testing. It is also important to have an incident response plan in place in the event of a security breach. The incident response plan should be tested regularly to ensure that it is functioning well. The common workflow of information diagram and decisions. It starts off with the gap between the current and the future targets, and then plans, and move on to the plans to close these gaps, and then the implementation phase. And at this phase, you have to make a decision whether to implement or whether to implement and make changes. If you decide to implement, you move on the action on to the report, and then you repeat the process. If you decide to implement and make changes, then you just move on, and after that, you just repeat the process. To maintain a secure network, ensure that the critical cybersecurity need comply with the following appropriate regulations. The payment credit card industry data security standard, a set of rules that outline the acceptable security standards for credit cards and debit cards used online or in person. It is designed to protect the details of the cardholder, transmit details in an encrypted form over the network. The organization should deploy a vulnerability management program. And you compare this to the NIST regulation and the ISO regulation and see how it balances out. And then there's the SOX, or the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. It's a law that the U.S. Congress passed to protect investors from fraudulent financial reporting. And there should be an internal reporting in which the management should be responsible for internal control structures. As some data security policy, and all the financial report of the company should include some internal control. Another appropriate regulations, the GLBA, Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. Financial institutions must communicate to their customer how to share customer-sensitive data information, inform customer of their right to opt out if they prefer. And the first rule of this act is to establish financial privacy. This protocol deals with the sensitive information of the customer, and there are some pre-testing provisions as well. Next is the HIPAA Act. These are rules of privacy and security breach notification enforcement protecting healthcare information. It grants the patient the right to use their protected health information, require disclosure of how the information is used. The company should set up some rules and policy for providing training to the staff. Backup should only be made using HIPAA-compliant cloud service. If an organization has successfully implemented HIPAA, then there will be minimal chances of attack. The Software Assurance Maturity Model, SAM, is a OAuth framework whose goal is to provide an effective, measurable way to analyze and improve organizational software security processes throughout the software lifecycle. SAM model includes 5 critical functions or elements. Governance, the security policy here is the document that outlines the organization's security stance. Should include goals, objectives, and strategies. The next is the design. The security architecture is the blueprint of how the organization's security system would be designed and implemented. The next one is the implementation. And the security controls are the safeguards that an organization put in place to protect its information asset. It can be divided into 3 categories: administrative, physical, and technical. Then there's the verification. The security monitoring is the process of continually accessing an organization's security posture and detecting threats and vulnerability. Lastly, the operation and incident response plans are a set of procedures that an organization follows in the event of a security breach. They should include steps to contain the breach, conduct an investigation, and restore normal operations. In conclusion, organization cybersecurity program reinforce the significant use and deployment of security framework to increase visibility, reduce risk from malicious activity, improve security posture, and enhance infrastructure to secure an organization's intellectual property. Using various control policy, best practices, and implementation guides, the organization established a security framework that secures and aligns an appropriate regulation. HIPAA, SOX, GLBA, etc. These are my references, and thanks for looking in.